The 401k plan has been around since 1978 when many employers or corporations realized that pension funds are just not sustainable anymore. But this video is not about the debate between 401k and pensions. And I want you to calculate your own 401k investment so that you can take control of your own future and not your employer or your government. And many of you believe that the growth of your 401k depends on how the stock market performs every year. But well, that's true, but the major contributing factor to how fast your 401k grows will depend on how much you put into your 401k. It's all about your savings rate or how much you put into your 401k every paycheck. So in this video, I'm going to show you how long it takes you to save $1 million based on your contribution rates. You can download your retirement calculator for absolutely free by visiting firesightshare.com/resources. And there are soaring numbers of 401k millionaires. And you might not believe this, but at the time I'm recording this video, Fidelity reported that the number of people with $1 million saved in their 401k increased by 20% from September to the end of December 2023. And there are a total of 422,000 Fidelity 401k account holders with a balance of 7 figures and beyond as of December 31st, which is up from 349,000 at the end of September and 299,000 from 2022. That's out of 45 million total Fidelity account holders. And this is just Fidelity, right? And what's also interesting is that 25% of Americans have no idea how much they have saved in their retirement accounts. So it is time for you to log in to your 401k account and find out how much you have saved. Now, I'm going to talk about the 401k throughout this video, but it's also going to apply to your 403b, 457, or TSP. And I don't know if you paid attention to the market at all, but the S&P 500 actually performed 26% in just 1 year in 2023, while the Dow Jones Industrial average went up by 13.7%. So if you had $10,000 invested in the S&P 500 index fund inside your 401k, you would have made $2,600 in total investment returns, assuming that you made a lump sum investments. But only 78% of 401k investors actually take advantage of the 401k match from their employers. Guys, if your employer gives you an employer match, I want you to take it because that is free money you're leaving on the table. The only exception is if you can't pay your bills or your debt has an outrageous interest rate like 100% or 200%. You have an outstanding debt with the IRS, or your debt is way bigger than your annual income. Trust me, I've seen those statements as a financial coach. So if you're interested in joining my private client program to pay off your high interest debt and create your own personalized financial independence strategy, you can schedule a free session with me by visiting firesightshare.com/coaching. So this is my retirement calculator, which you can download for free, again, by visiting firesightshare.com/resources. It's all free, okay? And I want you to ignore all of the numbers at the bottom here and just focus on the top line here, all these ones, okay? And just focusing on that would change the rest of it at the bottom. And when you download this calculator, you want to fill out the top line so the calculator can do all of the work for you, okay? So let's take a look. Ignore the bottom. If you can't see on my screen, you can actually pinch your screen and actually zoom in on the spreadsheet, all right? Right here, self-explanatory, your current age and then your current year. Here's the trick though. If you're going to be, let's say, I'm going to put 25. If you're going to turn 25 years old and you're still 24 right now, in the year 2024, you want to put 25 down, okay? It's the age that you're going to turn in the year 2024 in the current year. And then the next one is going to be your pre-tax income. So this is where you need to go to your pay stub and find out what your gross earnings are. So when you look at your pay stub, you don't look at your after-tax paycheck. It's not what you put into the your checking account. It is actually what says in the top of the pay stub. It says gross earnings, okay? And then the next one is going to be the personal savings rate. So it depends on how much you're saving right now. I'll just put 5% right now. That's being contributed to your 401k. And then your current retirement balance. This is where you need to log into your 401k and find out what your current balance is at the time you're trying to calculate this 401k spreadsheet. The next one is going to be your employer contribution rate. Okay, so that would be 5% of your annual pre-tax income if your employer matches 100% of your 5% of your personal savings rate. That is pretty common with the TSP. 401k fluctuates. I have seen clients with 5% personal contribution rate and the employer puts in like 2.5%. So if it's 2.5%, put 2.5% there. Okay, it'll just round up for you. You can put 3%, put 4%. It really just kind of depends on your 401k plan with the employer. So just check it out when you get a chance. And then the next one is going to be the annual savings rate increase. So this is going to be how much you're going to increase your savings every year. So if you're someone in your 20s, you're trying to pay down your student loans and you can only save up to the employer match of 5%. You can always put 1% here, and then that will increase by 1% every single year on how much you're going to contribute to your 401k plan. And then the next one, you can leave it at 0 if you want to, if you're already at 15% or if you're already at 25%. Typically, if you're starting below 15%, then you want to have a plan to increase your savings rate right there, right? Now, the next one is going to be the annual income increase. So this is where you increase your income on average every single year. What I've seen, with the exception of maybe like federal employees, I've seen people get a pay raise up to 5%, 10% if you switch jobs. That would be more of a extraordinary circumstance, right? But typically I've seen people get a pay raise on an average of 2% annually. That pretty much matches the inflation rate when inflation was normal. But right now it's at 2%. So that's what I typically put is 2%, because when you put 2% there, your contribution actually increases by 2% every year. So you want to be careful here. You can put 2% income here and put 1% here. That means that you're increasing your contribution by 3% annually, right? So you can always change your annual income increase to like 1.5% or maybe 1% here. And then you can or you can maintain the same income here at 0% and just increase your contribution rate at 2%. It's really up to you on how you want to do it. You can make these changes on your own when you download the spreadsheet, okay? The next one, you can't really change anything, would be the age 50 plus catch-up contribution. So if you're watching this and you're over the age of 50, let me know in the comment section down below. If you are, the catch-up contribution is going to be $7,500, okay? And when you're between the ages of 60 and 63, you actually get an extra $10,000, but that's not going to take effect until next year, but I left it in there. But you can change that to $7,500 if you want to until that thing takes effect. Now, the next one is going to be the year-to-date portfolio return. So this is the one where you put how your portfolio has performed since January 2nd, 2024. So on my 401k portfolio, it's 100% into S&P 500. I know it's performed like about 7% year to date. So I'll just put 7% here. And then the next one is going to be the future portfolio return. So that would be your estimated returns in the future. We don't know what that's going to be, right? But you can always estimate it. You can also decrease it by inflation. So you can have like an inflation adjusted portfolio return if you want to. It's completely up to you, okay? Now, once you fill the top line out, let's go ahead and take a look at age 25. So let's assume you're out of college, you just got a job, and your income is $50,000 a year, okay? You got to contribute 5% to get that 5% employer contribution. So we'll go ahead and go with the increase by 1% here. And then you get to 2% annual income increase, okay? So it's not very much, right? So you're contributing 5% and then you're doing a annual savings increase. That's where you can see the adjustments. But the first line, let's say 2024, annual income, $50,000, and then 5%, beginning balance at $0, and the personal contribution would be $2,500, and then the employer contribution would be another $2,500. And with the annual return, that's the annual return. Let's assume that it's only going to finish with 7% based on the year-to-date performance. It's going to end with $5,350, right? So how long does it take for someone with the age of 25 with an increase of savings rate of 1% annually hit $1 million? So it's going to take about 25 years at the age of 50 to hit $1 million in your 401k. Now, this is based on your income increasing by 2% annually. So if you switch jobs and you go from $50,000 to, let's say, $60,000 or maybe $75,000 a year, then that's really going to change the game, right? It's going to get you to that a lot faster. Now, remember the rule of 72. Rule of 72 is how long it takes your money to double based on the average annual return. Now, rule of 72 is based on math. So if you try to argue with me saying that that math is wrong, I don't know what else to tell you, okay? But if you have an average annual return of 8%, how long do you think it's going to take your 401k to double? That would be 72 divided by 8, and that would be 9, right? So it would take 9 years to double your investment. If you do 10% average annual return, then it will take you 7.2 years to double your investment. So keep that in mind about the rule of 72. That's why you want to take a look at your portfolio and see how it's invested. You might not have 100% into stocks. You might have 90% stocks. You may have 10% bonds, 80% stocks, 20% bonds. You want to take a look at your portfolio and manage your risk. By the way, did you know that over 50% of Americans who make over $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck? So is it always an income problem or a spending problem? If you're having trouble figuring out your budget, I encourage you to download a budget app called YNAB. YNAB stands for You Need a Budget. That's right. Whether you make $50,000 a year or $200,000 a year, every one of you needs to create a budget to achieve financial independence. You need to give every dollar a job so that you can be more intentional with your savings and spending. You can get a free trial without any credit card information by using the link in the description below. Let's take a look, and let's say you're 35, okay? 35, and you are making, we'll just call it $100,000 a year. And you are saving about 15% currently, and no annual increase, and you get a 5% employer contribution. Okay, do you see this? All right. So the total savings rate between you and the employer will be 20% total. Okay. So with the annual income increase of 2%, at the age of 35, it would take you until the age of 53 to have $1 million. Now I have 55 highlighted here because 55 falls under the rule of 55. Now, so many rules, right? But the rule of 55 means that that's when you can actually take money out of your 401k penalty free. Okay. You could get fired from your job. You could get laid off. You could just quit your job or retire in the same year you turn age 55, and you get penalty free distribution from your 401k. That would be the rule of 55. Now, 60 is also highlighted in blue, and that would be taking money out of your Roth 401k tax-free and penalty-free. So by the time you're 60, you would have almost $2.2 million if you start saving at a rate of 15% and say you are making $100,000 a year in pre-tax income. Okay, so take a look at your pay stub on how much you make, and take a look at your personal savings rate, and then you can do some calculations on there, right? Now, let's run another scenario. Let's say you are 45, right? You see how the bottom lines changed? Let me go back to 35, right? You see that change at the bottom? So 45, and then you make $100,000 a year. Now, you are still contributing 15% and 5%. So at the age of 45 with the 15%, it's going to take you until you're age 62 to get to that. So if you have nothing investing in your 401k, you feel like you have a late start on it, this is where you need to either max out your personal savings rate to get to that 401k maximum limit, or you can just increase your income drastically. Okay. So this year, the maximum contribution limit is $23,000. So I'm going to put 23% there. Okay. If you put more than that, 24%, you see it's going to highlight red because it's over the contribution limit. So it's a pretty neat calculator that you can do. So 23% here, that's the maximum you can do. And then you get an employer contribution of 5%. That doesn't count towards your personal contribution. Okay. So the total savings rate will put you at 28% total. So if you max out your 401k starting now at the age of 45, by the age of 59, you would have over $1 million invested, okay? And that's with the catch-up contribution. If you take a look at the age of 50 down here, all right? That's where it says $7,500 in catch-up contribution. that's where you can start contributing extra towards it. So that would put you actually above 30% savings rate. Is that going to be too much? Not necessarily if you're behind on your retirement savings, right? This is where you can decide on how much you need to put more into your 401k so that you can kind of catch up to make sure that you can retire on time or retire early. Now, when you get to age 60, you see where it's highlighted blue. And if you want to continue to work, then you can put an extra $10,000 at the age of 60, 61, 62, and then 63. And then if you continue to work, this is kind of weird from Congress, but at the age of 64, you got to go back down to $7,500. That is the IRS limits per Secure Act 2.0. So this is how you can figure out how long it takes you to get to $1 million. If you feel like, that's not enough, you get to 2 million, then that would take you to the age of 65. And that is based on maxing out your 401k contributions. And I've had quite a few clients in their 50s. So let's say you're at the age of 50, making $100,000 a year at 23% savings rate, okay? So again, same thing. It would actually take you to the age of 63 to have $1 million, assuming that you have no 401k savings at the time you're calculating your 401k. If you have, let's say, I have $100,000 saved right now, is that going to be enough? Then it puts you in a faster pace. You could have $1 million by the time you're 61. This is based on the 8% average annual return. But if you bring it down to 7%, then it's going to take another year to get to $1 million. But, this 8%, 7% is pretty significant going into when you calculate the average annual return. But when you go into here, the personal savings rate at 23%, this is what matters most if you have $0 in your 401k balance as of right now. And if you're someone like, oh man, I'm 50, I am too late and I need to start saving, this is where you need to start calculating and say, okay, I wasted my time and this is where I need to put more money into it. This is how you can figure it out, right? And if your employer doesn't give you any match at all, right, it tells you how long it takes you to get to $1 million. Now, if it gets to $1 million at 65, is that going to be enough? I would say so. If you have a pension coming in, and remember your Social Security pension is going to be the full one is going to be at 67. And if you wait till 70, you're going to have over $1.8 million in your 401k if you choose to work that long. But if you are way behind on your 401k savings, this is what you're going to have to do. Now, you don't have to just do 401k. You can also do the Roth IRA. 401k has a bigger limit compared to any other retirement vehicles like Roth IRA and HSA. So you want to take advantage of this and figure out how long it takes you to get to $1 million mark. Now, I keep saying $1 million, right? It doesn't have to be $1 million. And some of you may not even need $1 million to retire if you already have let's say real estate income. I know someone who has a $2 million real estate portfolio. Then you might not need that big of a 401k balance to retire because you have that other income streams. So my business, as an example, I always have a YouTube income coming in, probably for the rest of my life, as long as my YouTube account is active, right? And that's royalty income that's coming from Google. So that counts as my business income. And that's how I can always contribute to the 401k and Roth IRA because those are considered active income. So you want to take your entire financial picture as a consideration because you don't want to just say, oh, I got to have $1 million in my 401k to retire. That's not always the case. You may be someone who just needs, let's say, $250,000 or maybe $500,000 to have a 401k. If you already have a pension, let's say coming in from the military, maybe a pension from Social Security, that's going to be enough to pay for your expenses. Real estate, as I talked about, you may also have dividend income from your taxable brokerage account. So I have a bunch of videos on those. Just check them out on my YouTube channel and you can learn from that. Common misconception is that the stock market trumps the savings rate. That's not the case at all. The reason why your 401k is not growing as fast is because you're only contributing 5%. If you're out of debt, you should strive to get to the 15% savings rate at the minimum with your 401k. If you make over $100,000 a year, then try to increase your savings rate from 15 to 25%, or try to make the maximum contribution limit at $23,000. Look, if you're just going to complain in my comment section that you can't do it because your expenses are too high and none of this is realistic, well, it's really up to you to make those changes, or you're just going to continue to complain for the rest of your life. And I'm just showing you the math on what happens when you increase your savings rate. And the rest is up to you. And if you're following my financial independence checklist, you should contribute to your 401k only up to your employer match, and then start paying down your high interest debt. Once your debt is paid off, then you should have at least 6 months of expenses set aside in a high yield savings account, because that's the cushion that you need in between your cash and your investments, right? If you truly want to retire comfortably and not worry about inflation eating your money away, you need to try to work on maxing out your retirement every single year. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't done it already.